With the upcoming release of both Avengers Endgame and Godzilla King of the Monsters, which both seek to play a large role in their own respective universes, one must wonder, how did the concept of cinematic universes become so popular and successful? Along with that, what does success mean for a movie? Is it critical reception, box office sales, studio reception, or a combination of the three? While not the original creator, as Universal and Toho pioneered the concept decades beforehand, Marvel was the undoubted root cause of studios trying to take a crack at the shared universe concept. Marvel's still massively successful strategy has unintentionally led to many movies and studios failing as they try to catch up with Disney's cash cow. To see how Marvel found the winning formula and how other movies have copied them to varying degrees, one only needs to look back at the MCU's origin in 2008's Iron Man. Despite what some believe with this movie, Marvel was playing it fairly safe with how they constructed it after their other films had flopped. Though the character of Tony Stark is now a household name, for much of his life in the comics, he was relatively unpopular and unimportant, with him even being replaced by a younger version of himself for a while, and no one really cared. This, along with a now resurging actor in Robert Downey Jr., allowed the studio to play it safer. If the movie failed, they sweep both the hero and actor away, as they weren't all that important to the company, like Spider-Man and Wolverine are. If the movie failed, they would try another D-list superhero with a method I am sure was well thought out and practiced.
All right. We need our next superhero in the next 5 minutes. Picture this. Squirrel Girl, but with dogs.
We're never gonna freaking get this.
All right, we'll try
Okay.
2 more times. If not, we'll
Oh my god.
do not throw it when I'm around it.
Other more recent studios have started with their big names, such as Superman for Warner Brothers and The Mummy for Universal. This made their movies much more restricted due to how important those IPs are to these companies. Marvel's methodology allowed the creators a bit more freedom in the construction of the movie. Though Iron Man's origin stayed mostly the same, except for being updated from taking place in Vietnam to taking place in the Middle East, the rest of the script was given more breathing room. Unlike other movies nowadays that are set up movies, this gave Marvel freedom to insert small nods to a larger cinematic universe in a way that did not feel intrusive, such as in the recent Mummy movie, which shoved in so many in-your-face references to future films, its own story was choked out and became worse as a result. Kong Skull Island also seemed to understand this idea of subtle references while allowing the film to stand on its own. The references to Godzilla and the greater monsters universe are sparse, with only a few characters mentioning a creature here and there, which a film viewer may have missed if not aware of the connection. Though this does play a large role for the reason behind the characters going to the island. Without the larger universe behind Iron Man, the narrative is sturdy enough to be a solo film. And while Kong is a little more shaky in this regard, it can also mostly stand on its own. The Mummy and Batman v Superman, for the most part, cannot. Their narratives rely too much on the fact that other movies do or will exist. While this is true for the Avengers series, it came out after many movies that have proven their worth. With such big hopes and IPs in these projects, the need for a successful movie for the studio to continue this potential franchise is much higher than when Iron Man came out. However, this leads to a more complicated debate. What is success for a movie? Even prior to the cinematic universe boom of the last decade, this topic has been difficult to define. A widely acclaimed movie like Shawshank Redemption was a box office bomb. Does this mean box office defines success? Referring once again to Skull Island, the film made $566.7 million at the box office, though its critical reception was average to below average. Does this make it a success? Well, in the eyes of the studio, it seems to be a success, as the franchise is still going strong with a Kong vs. Godzilla movie in the works. The Mummy, however, was not a success in terms of box office, with a $95 million loss and extremely low scores by critics and audiences. What about studio reactions? Movie series such as the Transformers were constantly bombed in reviews, and while they were mostly successful, the big reason the films still continue is due to Paramount highly regarding its ability to sell not only tickets, but toys as well. Marvel movies, with a rare few exceptions, have managed to excel in all three categories, with each movie coming out as a smashing success both financially and critically. This makes it seem as if what counts as success for a movie can vary between studio to studio, or even movies themselves. This can give cinematic universes that seek to dethrone the Marvel juggernaut more than one chance if the studio has confidence in finding that one shining light that steers them to success. It seems, despite most studios risking failure in either critical or financial areas, it appears almost to be a desperate climb to reach that tempting fruit of this film format as they continue to see Marvel rise higher and higher. One of the biggest signs of Marvel's style creating impact on the average moviegoer can be seen in every cinema and for every movie, regardless of if the movie is standalone or part of a larger world. That is, the after credit scene. These exist largely for two reasons. The more respectable one is to have all the crew who put hours into the movie get some appreciation from an otherwise uncaring audience. The other and far more important reason is advertisement. With only a few minutes, the movie teases the audience with the next chapter in this saga, making them aware before the trailers or posters are even created, causing excitement. This again began with Iron Man, when Samuel L. Jackson walked out of the darkness and welcomed our victorious hero to a large world that no one knew existed. Marvel has continued this for every movie in this cycle, giving audiences a taste of what is to come. This has trained the audience member to wait for a possible end teaser for every movie they go to see, even if there is none. Cinema has been through many trends and experimental phases. Every studio tries to find that jackpot that leads them down the road of pure success, but eventually other studios try copying this formula until the trend dies out. This can be seen with the recent cinematic universe trend, where the careful time and effort by Marvel to create a universe that all connects back to form a much wider narrative than most films can carry. Other studios see the large sum of money and praise these works get, but rather than attempt to understand how they got to this point, studios like Warner Brothers, Universal, and others only seek to mimic what they believe works. This has caused countless flops in movies that were strangled by the need to create these connections and form bridges instead of focusing on the film in front of them. While some have found success, it does not compare to the juggernaut that is the MCU. These studios, whether successful or not, have been greatly affected by Disney's unstoppable wave of success, but other studios' mimicry lacks the understanding of what makes these movies work. As studios attempt to try over and over, they will mimic, but never understand.